Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
4 o'clock, Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Eagles injury report, fresh, hot off the press. And I guess the one interesting name, which will not be on there, Jordan Davis, because obviously he was on the injured list. He has that window to return, so they don't have to list him. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is out with a kidney. Robert Quinn is out with a knee. Not that he's done much. Everybody else good to go. Why hasn't Robert Quinn done much? We can talk about that. Got an interesting question. If you want to ask a question for Football at 4, you can do that. 609-403-0973. We got Geoff Mosher in the house today for today's Football at 4. We'll bring Mosher into the conversation here in just a little bit. And, of course, one thing on that injury front, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson not on the injured reserve yet. So that's probably good news. And I wonder if that's because of what's going on with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, we had McMullen on earlier in the week, and he had said he saw Goedert in the locker room, and he essentially looked pretty healthy and seemed like he was maybe available. I don't know about this week, but possibly next week. But he can't play this week, next week, or the following week because he has to sit out 4 full weeks. And maybe the Eagles feel pretty good that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson could be back and ready to go inside that 4-week window. That would be a big boost. But, look, they need him. They cannot have injury issues bringing them down. I know if they lose a game or two, it will not hurt them in terms of their playoff possibilities. This team is making the playoffs. If they don't, it would be an absolute epic collapse. So let's bring Geoff Mosher into the conversation, get his thoughts on that. Some good questions from the text board people out there today. We've kind of wanted to do this a little bit more for the people out there. If you have questions for Football at 4, you can text them in at 609-403-0973. There's Geoff Mosher here for Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast at InsideTheBirds.com. What's going on, Mosher?
Hey, Mike, how are you? Sorry I'm late.
Yeah, it's Friday. See, you're all out of whack. You probably totally.
That's definitely it.
He's not normally here on a Friday, so he's getting all the Friday questions. The injury report is out, nothing crazy on that. And you can explain to the people why Jordan Davis doesn't have to be on the injury report because he is not listed.
Right. He's not technically a member of the 53-man roster at the moment. He is in the 21-day practice window that you're activated into when you're ready to, when you have done your 4 games of injured reserve, and they have until 4 o'clock, I believe, tomorrow to make a decision. And for whatever reason, we joke on the podcast about this all the time. It wouldn't surprise me if they announced that he'll be active on the 53-man roster at 4 or 4:01 p.m. tomorrow. They really like to take it all the way down.
Right. Now, is your anticipation, Geoff, that Jordan Davis will be available and be ready to play?
It sure sounds that way based on what Nick Sirianni said. I think the Eagles are carrying 52 right now, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it wouldn't require a corresponding roster move if they did activate him. So that might help them because it's not like there's a roster casualty. I'll have to go back and check. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. And then I would imagine that, they had the walkthrough Wednesday. It's really Thursday and Friday practice. We really don't know how much he practiced. So although they're sort of speaking as if they're ready to get him there, there's a part of me that wonders if he will play just because you're off for 4 weeks. He apparently lost a lot of weight, which could be a good thing for him. But, where's his conditioning level at? How many snaps will he realistically be able to play? And how has his ankle – this is the big thing. How has his ankle responded to Thursday and Friday practice? From what I was told with the injury, which, as far as I know, did not require any surgical procedure or anything like that. From what I know about the injury, though, is you test the ankle out and it's how it responds the day after and then the day after to really know. If he wakes up, and this is part of the reason they wait so long, if he wakes up tomorrow and that thing is throbbing and it just didn't take well to whatever they did today, which was probably a little bit more rigorous than yesterday, then they have a decision to make there about whether or not they want to actually play him in the game.
Right. Let's get a couple thoughts on that spot. Number one, before we get to that, Robert Quinn is out. What would you surmise has been? Can he just not play? What would you say about that trade so far?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't worked out. The trade made sense at the time they made it. It was weird. He popped up with a back injury. Was it last week or the week before in practice? I can't remember. I think it was the week before, after the Washington game. He missed. He was either limited or missed a practice, and they said back. And it's funny because someone who I was speaking to, who was had watched the Eagles tape, had been telling me prior that he just did not look himself. He did not look explosive. He did not look like he had the same kind of bend going back to the Washington game and the game he had played before that for the Eagles. And the person had even said to me, it looks like he's sort of either kind of nursing an injury or playing like someone who's not 100%. And then weirdly, he popped up like 3 days later on the injury report. Now that was the back, and now it's the knee. I don't know if there's a connection there. When you start favoring one part of your body, you start hurting the others, but it's obviously not a very good sign. I mean, they traded for him. He's not really been explosive. He's not been productive, and he's now had two different injuries or been listed on the injury report with two different injuries.
Yeah, let's look at that defensive front now. As we got some questions coming in, if Green Bay averaged 5 yards a carry versus the Eagles, what are the Tennessee Titans going to do? So let's kind of get your thoughts on that, and then we can kind of branch off into a conversation about this defensive front.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, I think you can probably, you're not reaching if you say that the Titans will probably have some matches in the running game that they're really going to like, but everybody runs against the Eagles differently. You saw Washington and Indianapolis sort of just kind of pound them up the gut. And Washington did not really have a high yards per carry average. They ran the ball a lot, but I wouldn't say they ran the ball well or explosively against the Eagles. And neither did the Colts after the first drive, right? So the Packers ran the ball well and more explosively because they came out formationally in a lot of 11 personnel, and they tried to get the Eagles to match them in nickel 4-down fronts, which they were able to run against. And a lot of teams have hurt the Eagles running on them in 4-down fronts this year. So it'll be interesting to see what Tennessee does, because Tennessee has a banged-up line. They have two tight ends that can block. They do like to run in big packages, Mike, but when you do that, that's when you get the Eagles into their 5-man fronts. Now, they're probably confident that they can run against the Eagles no matter what front they play because Tennessee runs the ball well. But Derrick Henry has not had really good running games the last 3 weeks. So, I don't know. There's a whole lot of cat and mouse here that I think is going to happen strategically with what Tennessee does and the way they try to – we know they're going to run. The question is, strategically and formationally, how will they try to run against the Eagles, and what defenses will they try to dictate from the Eagles to get into?
Yeah, Moshe, for the listeners out there, it's like, hey, Tennessee's going to run. Can John Gannon call his defense differently? Can he build his defense differently? Are you going to do something totally different for one opponent?
No, but there is one thing that sort of accidentally might help them, and that's C.J. Gardner-Johnson being out. We know that CJ is not a safety. He's a nickelback. I mean, he played a little safety in college. He's not a great tackler. That's been pretty obvious throughout most of the year. Reed Blankenship is a safety. Played safety at Middle Tennessee State. He's been a safety here. They don't jockey him around from one position to another. And if you watch the game, and I know Quentin Michael and Jason Avant were bullish on this, they felt that Reed did a really good job in the run defense game against the Packers. I mean, he was willing to get in there, make hits, stick his nose into it. So because he'll be filling in for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, unless they make some kind of strange move to put Wallace in there, but imagine it'll be Reed, that might help them a little bit more in the run game, because not only have the Eagles had trouble at the line of scrimmage with their gap integrity, but we've seen when running backs get into the second level, it's like they get an extra 10 to 15 yards sometimes because the secondary has done a terrible job at tackling in the open field this year. So maybe that's a little bit of a help. But schematically, Greg Cosell likes to say, when you're talking about a guy lining up in the 3 technique or the 4-eye or whatever alignment you want to say, moving someone to the left or right a few inches doesn't all of a sudden make them either a great or a terrible run defender. And I agree with that assessment. It's going to take a really good effort from the front 6, 7, however, whether it's 5-1, 4-2, whatever, to bring down Derrick Henry.
Here was a question that was asked, and let's get your take on it. Is there a way that the Eagles would play Jordan Davis and Linval Joseph on the field at the same time?
Yes, but you're not, obviously, only one person can line up over the center in a 5-man front. So only one person can be your nose tackle. Linval Joseph is a true nose. I don't know that he's ever played 3 or 5 tech. Jordan Davis has played some 3 technique both at Georgia and even with the Eagles. He's done it a little bit, and that's sort of like the Fletcher Cox role. So could they do it? Yes. But if I were going into a game knowing that I only had X amount of snaps that I could play Jordan Davis and X amount of snaps that I could play Linval Joseph, I might be a little sort of leery about trying to get both of them on the field at the same time, because now that reduces a snap each for each guy. You get what I'm saying? Like it's hard to make them interchangeable if there are going to be packages where you play them at the same time.
Yeah, I know that. And I mean, obviously, maybe goal line situations.
Yeah, that I was just about to say. Situationally, maybe 4th or 3rd and goal, or 3rd and 1 and goal line. Yeah.
Yeah. Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. We talked a lot about, obviously, Tampa running the ball, Eagles defending it. What about when Philly has the ball, Jeff? What are some of the things this week? Tampa's a man defense, a lot of man coverage here. So there's 2 things that can come from that, in my mind. See if you agree and get your take. A.J. Brown one-on-one could be a problem. Or 2, when you got man coverage, you got numbers facing the quarterback. When Jalen Hurts sees numbers, he could be taken off a lot this week.
Yeah, so the Titans are interesting in that they're a great run defense, and they are in their sub packages quite a bit. So they defend the run well with light boxes, nickel, dime. However, I've seen a lot of teams going back to last year, the Saints being one, that were known for stopping the run out of sub packages, out of nickel and some dime, that did not have farewell when they had to do it against the Eagles. I think that it's one thing to be a great run defense when you're facing running backs. It's another thing when you're facing running backs and running quarterbacks, which the Titans don't have a whole lot of experience against. I mean, yeah, they played Daniel Jones week 1, but I don't think Jones was getting run that much. They did play Patrick Mahomes, but I think we would all agree he's more of a scrambler than a designed runner, like an improvised runner, which Jalen Hurts does. But the design run of Jalen Hurts is the area where I think they can hurt the Titans the most, especially if the Titans are going to come out in light packages like nickel and dime.
Yeah, and, one thing, too, last week the Eagles ran, 49 times for 369 yards. Now, a bunch of those runs were from Jalen Hurts, and a bunch of those yards were from Jalen Hurts, but 21 carries for 149 for Miles Sanders. Do the Eagles look at it and say, hey, listen, we're running the ball well right now, let's stick with it?
Well, they could, but, I mean, they've also snowed blood when they've seen really good matchups on the outside at times this year. First game Washington, they did that. And you look at this very good Titans defense, and you do look at the quarterback situation and say, all right, well, they've got rookie Roger McCreary in one spot, Christian Fulton in another. McCreary was a 4-5 guy. He's not necessarily the speediest corner, and he's kind of short. In fact, a lot of people thought he would be a slot corner coming out of college, and maybe that was the plan. I think the Titans have so many injuries. Who knows what their original plans at that spot were. But that would be a guy that I would think that the Eagles will try to match any of their guys up against, whether A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez, who we've seen line up on the outside a few times now and catch deep balls. So I think the run game, of course, will be a staple of what the Eagles do, yes, but I don't know that they're going to come out with this sort of 70% run ratio in mind against a team that's really good against the run. And if they see favorable matchups in the past, I imagine they will attack them early like they've done in other games this year.
Hey, Jeff, real quick on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Him being out this week and not being reserved, does that suggest that he probably will be back within the 4 weeks?
It does right now, unless they kind of pull a surprise on us and do something tomorrow, which, I can't imagine. They don't have to. Again, I'm pretty sure you can activate Jordan Davis without making a move there. But, I do think that it's more positive than negative that they didn't put him on IR this week, and it suggests that he'll be back before the 4-week span.
Any sense, I know Goddard has to wait the 4 weeks, but does it seem like maybe they made a mistake? I mean, does he seem like are you hearing that he's going to be ready to go when he comes back? I think McMullen was on early this week and said he saw him in the locker room, and almost looks like he could have played this week if he was able to.
Well, he's out of the sling. I know he said he was told the guys he's feeling good. They never really said whether the shoulder was a separation or the extent of the injury, so it's hard to say. But they clearly, if they put him on for 4, they thought he was going to be out at least 3 and maybe need a week. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good news there because obviously, somebody said, look, the Eagles are struggling without him, which, you can.
2-0.
They scored 40. They scored 40 last week. I feel like we've downplayed the fact, Jeff. I feel like we downplayed the fact all week. It was downplayed that this team scored 40 points last week.
Yeah, for a team that was it really did struggle on offense for 2 weeks. They certainly got their mojo back last week.
Yeah,
that's going to be harder this week, though. I mean, to drop a 40 nugget on the Titans would be one hell of an accomplishment.
All right, Geoff Mosher, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. Don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame show, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. And, of course, Mosher's back on Monday to recap the Eagles and the Titans. How are you feeling about this game? I
like the Eagles. I think that their defense is going to cause a lot of problems for the Titans offense. I think the Titans offensive line is not very good. I think the Titans weaponry overall is not very good outside of Derrick Henry. And, you can let Derrick Henry can have a great game, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's still just 14 points. Where are they getting the other, are they stopping the Eagles and holding them to 13?
Yep.
That's what I question.
Good point. All right, Jeff, have a great weekend, buddy.
You too, Mike. Thanks.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN.